life.
It's not a price. Just everyday stuff, and not spiritual.
Okay.
Inappropriate music.
But now, can something be secular and not be inappropriate? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that are secular, not inappropriate, because I think sometimes we all, and thank God we all grown in here. We think about different stuff being secular, and sometimes I think that some people can be, I've said it before, people can be so heavenly bound that they're no earthly good. And now, yes, there's some terrible music out here. There is. There's some terrible music. But all secular music is not bad. There's some good love songs and good things. And because I'm not going to be going in the bedroom whispering sweet nothings to my wife with Jesus on the main line. I just ain't going to do it. Frank, I just ain't going to do it, sir. I ain't gonna be nibbling on her ear, listening to Pass Me Not, Oh Gentle Savior. I'm just not gonna do it. I mean, it don't work like that. So there are some secular things, but all secular things does not mean that it's bad things. But sometimes we can get so caught up into the secular world and the secular life that we forget about God. Let's look here. We're going to first read in its entirety, Luke 12:13-21, and then we're going to break it down. I'm going to read it for you first I'm going to read it here from the King James Version, and then you'll look on the screen and we'll hear it in the Message Bible. And it says, and one of the company said unto him, Master, speak to my brother that he divide the inheritance with me. And he said unto him, Man who made me a judge or a divider over you? And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth. And he spake a parable unto him, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully, and he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, This will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there shall I bestow all of my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Now let's listen to it. I'm going to read it in the Message Bible. So it says, someone out of the crowd said, Teacher, order my brother to give me a fair share of the family inheritance. He replied, Mister, what makes you think it's any of my business to be a judge or mediator over you? Speaking to the people, he went on, Take care, protect yourself against the least bit of greed. Life is not defined by what you have, even when you have a lot. Then he told them this story. The farm of a certain rich man produced a terrific crop. He talked to himself, What can I do? My barn isn't big enough for this harvest. Then he said, Here's what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. Then I'll gather in all my grain and goods. And I'll say to myself, Self, you've done well. You've got it made and can now retire. Take it easy and have the time of your life. Just then God showed up and said, Fool, tonight you die. And your barn full of goods, who gets it? That's what happens when you fill your barn with self and not with God. So as we look at verses 13 through 15, let's go back to 13 and recap 13 through 15. It said, someone out of the crowd said, "Teacher, order my brothers to give me a fair share of the family inheritance." He replied, "Mister, what makes you think it is any of my business to be a judge or mediator for you?" And verse 15 says, speaking to the people, he went on, "Take care, protect yourself against the least bit of greed. Life is not defined by what you have, even when you have a lot." So how does this world that we live in, how does it measure success? Mm-hmm.
Things that you have big houses and cars. And most times that's the way they do it.
Mm-hmm. That's how you measure success. How else? How does the world do? Even the world looks at success as Deacon Mildred said, if you don't drive this certain type of car, you must not be any good. If you don't drive this, you must not be nothing. And I grew up in the church world, and growing up in the church, it's not because I've always, Sister Capers, I've always loved the Cadillac. I've always loved the Cadillac. But when we used to go to these church conventions and meetings, then you probably remember every preacher had a Cadillac or a Lincoln. Every one of them. It was a Cadillac or a Lincoln. And now as time progressed, they moved up from the Cadillacs and the Lincolns, and they have the Lexuses, the Mercedes, the Audis, all these big, fine, fancy cars. Yeah, Teslas, they have all these. And so that's how people look at or make people feel that they are successful. But sometimes you got people driving these big, fine, fancy cars trying to keep up with the Joneses, and they struggling at home. Just struggling because they're trying to make themselves look successful in the eyes of the world. And because the world measures success by what you have, by the clothes that you wear, things that you have, and it's no shame for me. I will quickly go to Walmart and buy me a shirt and a pair of pants. I'll do it in a minute. Ain't nothing wrong with it. If you find something good at the thrift store, pair of pants and the shirt, wash it up real good, put it on, and it looks good, because there are some suits that I have that I wear that came from a thrift store. You can't look at them and tell, but they came from a thrift store. So you can't tell where it came from.
Before we came to Bible study, I talked to a certain person, and they said, "I went down to Dollar General," and she went for some big sight. "That's $10. I said, "We got it at the store for $1.25. She said, "Where?" I said, "Dollar Tree." I said, "Have you never been in Dollar Tree?" "No, I don't come in there. I didn't think they had." Some people are embarrassed to come in Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree got a lot of stuff, y'all. They got name brand stuff. We putting up name brand stuff, so y'all come to Dollar Tree.
I love the Dollar Tree. Yeah, because you have certain people that won't step foot inside of a Dollar Tree because they think that's not where the elite people shop. Yeah, Dollar Tree is that, but the world would make you think that you can't go to the Dollar Tree. The world would make you think that if you buy a dress or you buy a suit, you got to get it from Belk or Nordstrom's or somewhere fine and fancy. And then, when you trying to keep up with the world, the fact of the matter is, me working in looking into the funeral homes and different things, you come in there and you look at a casket, you see the price of that casket, it's gonna tell you that casket's about $8, $9, $10,000. But the funeral home only paid about $800 or $900 for it. And the prices are just marked up so high. The prices are marked up extremely high. But, yeah, you got to negotiate. But everything, because we have to understand we're measuring ourselves by what the world said is successful. Number two, it says advertisers spend millions to entice us to think that if we buy more and more of their products, we will be happier, more fulfilled, and more comfortable. How do you respond to the constant pressure to buy? How do you respond to the constant pressure to buy? D, how do you respond to the constant pressure of Amazon? Huh? But see, the Amazon is a good place because you can find some good stuff on Amazon and it's not as expensive. But the world, it entices us to buy their products, to get this, and you see different stuff on TV. And so now you ask yourself, how do you know what's really the best? I was looking, Frank, the other day, I was trying to change my oil. And so I said, well, I'm always used to using Mobil 1 full synthetic oil. But then I saw a commercial that said Valvoline was better than Mobil 1. Then I saw another commercial that said Pennzoil was better than Valvoline. And they said, so everybody's doing these tests, and so everybody's trying to get you to buy. And always the one that says that they're better is the one that costs the most.
You could be riding in a Cadillac, and I could be in a hoopties. I get there just as quick as you get there.
Yeah.
But then again, I was thinking too what you just said. But the Bible tells us to be in the world, but not of it.
Not of the world.
And we lose it right there. If we think that we will get something better,
yeah. And so the world gives us all, and especially now at Christmas time, you see all of these products that are going on sale, and all of these things that they're trying to sell. And I even remember growing up, and the kids don't have it like we had it, Frank. They don't have it like we had it. You know, we was growing up, we used to get those big old, what's those catalogs? Was it Sears and Roebuck? Sears and Roebuck catalog, those wish books. But I would go through that whole book circling everything that I wanted. Didn't know that you had to actually have money to get it. Because I used to tell my mama when I used to ask her to buy me stuff, mama said, we'd go somewhere and she said, honey, I don't have the money to get that. And so you know what my response would be? Just write a check. I didn't realize that you had to have money in the bank in order to write a check. So I tell mom, you write a check for everything else. Write me a check for that toy. Because I didn't understand the value of money and how money operated and how banks operated. But we are always under a constant pressure to buy something. Buy. We're always under it.
For their casting. And I got to think, I said, look how many millions is out there in that graveyard back here. Because people wanted to see that, didn't they have a nice casting? I bet that thing cost something,
Yeah.
And they put it's about family's preference, but some put people in a big casting and couldn't even have a repast for the family.
Yeah.
Because they had no more money.
Yeah, and you're right. That cemetery is worth millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Because you got your casket that you got to pay for, then you got the vault that you got to pay for, and then they spend all these money on these flowers. It's just gonna do nothing but die and go away unless you buy a plant. And you buy a plant will stay alive unless you give it to First Lady. But other than that, it'll stay alive. But you spend all of this money And that's how the world has conditioned us. Wants us to think that you just got to buy. And that's what we do. We go and we buy. But now I'm at the point now I go and I'll look for a deal. You got to give me a deal. Yeah, you got to give me a deal. And my wife gets me all the time. I'm going to the store. It's buy one, get one free. I'm not going to leave my free item. If it's buy one, get two free, I'm getting everything that's free. Uh-huh.
I picked that out, but I saw one in the book. It was like a grayish, bluish something. And I said, but this is not this one. I said, but her favorite color red. He said, I'll get you that one in red. So if I hadn't spoke up, I wouldn't have done that.
Right. 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 Just got in a different color. So that's how the world makes us think. It says the man in verse 13 saw Jesus merely as an instrument to gain what he desired. His love for the material gain outweighed his desire to learn from Jesus. Jesus sees the heart of the issue and warns the listeners, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. So what is greed? What's greed? On everything? Huh? Hoarding. Sometimes I've fallen into the place where I've never been selfish and greedy with things that I have, but I've been greedy when it comes to food. If I taste something that I like and I want some more, you bet not touch my plate, because I can. Yeah, we can. So all of us have been greedy in some sense, and greed can really tear you up, because greedy people can't seem to realize when they've had enough, or when they have enough and they continually want more. Because what you have, greedy people, what you have is never enough. You may have enough, you may make enough money to pay all your bills, and after you pay all your bills, you live comfortably. And no, you may not be able to go across the world like everybody else, but you're comfortable and you've got what you need. But greedy people, they don't settle for being comfortable, because they have something, but they always want more, and that's all they want is just more. And we live in a world full of greedy people. It says, how might we be guilty of misusing our relationship with God? Because this man here, he was desiring the things of God, but he wasn't desiring God himself. So how do we misuse our relationship with God? We misuse it because we don't serve him like we ought to serve him. But as soon as we get in trouble, call on the Lord. Ain't prayed all month long. Then you get down to the end of the month where your bills is due, and you got more bills than you got money. Then what you want to do? You won't pray. Hadn't worshiped God, hasn't did anything for God in such a long time. But as soon as you need him, that's when you're gonna call him. And why do we do that? Right? Don't have a testimony until you get sick. Mm-hmm.
God said that, but as we go out, before we turn our cars, our houses, our money, our clothes, our jobs, we turn it into, we worship it, or as Pastor just said, or we come and get, or we spend time in this book.
Yep.
If you do anything more, and this is just my opinion, if you do anything more worshiping God, it's going to turn to you. It's not.
Yeah.
Period.
And we use God for what we want to use it for, or when we think of something. Just like I remember when 1999, going into the year 2000, everybody said Y2K or Y2K. When the year 2000 hit, they said everything's going to crash, all this stuff going to happen. And I'll never forget, in 1999, on New Year's Eve, there was more people in church than I had ever seen before. I mean, because they thought that the world was literally going to come to an end. Right, you didn't see them, and then after they got into the year 2000, we were at church. We got out probably about 12:30, and they was like, okay, well, we still made it. They woke up on January 2nd. They figured out they still made it. So about 50% of the people that were in watch night service ended up being at church that next Sunday. Okay, we saw an increase in people. But then after those people were not in church, then Sunday after Sunday passed by, the crowd dwindled down. And it got back down to the faithful few that were always there. And that's what happens to us. When something happens that is drastic in our lives, that's when we want to turn to God. But then when we realize that it's like after time, things go back to business as usual. Well, you know what? I'm good now. I'm good. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And then we feel like we're okay. And so now we are misusing our relationship that we have with God, because now we only, just like the people in the Bible, the only reason they wanted God they wanted to be with Jesus when he was feeding the multitude is because of the fishes and the loaves. They wanted for the fish and the loaves. Because he took what? 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread, and fed a multitude of people. Fed 5,000 people. And they were so happy when they got fed. When that fish fry was over, they was happy, full and fat. And then they ain't seen those 5,000 again no more. And that's what happens. Folks will come to church when they know you're eating. If you're feeding, they're going to be at church. Because they want that meal. But then after they get that meal, they're not going to be back to the next meal. But that's how we misuse our relationship with God, because we feel like, and when we misuse our relationship with him, we're taking his grace for granted. God has been gracious unto all of us, but we got to make sure that we're not taking it for granted. It says secular values lead to selfish choices. Let's read verses 16 through 19. It says, then he told them a story. The farm of a certain rich man produced a terrific crop. He talked to himself. He said, what can I do? My barn isn't big enough for this harvest. Then he said, here's what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. Then I'll gather all my grain and goods. And I'll say to myself, self, you've done well. You've got it made and can now retire. Take it easy and have the time of your life. Jesus used this teachable moment to tell a story. Is this part of the story appealing to you? Why or why not? So in this part of the story, what was happening? This man got a whole bunch of stuff and wanted a bigger space to put it in. Yeah. So after he found a bigger space to put it in, he gathered it all, and he was looking at himself. He said, I got it made. He said to himself, you've done well. He said, you've got it made, and now you can retire. He said, take it easy and have the time of your life. Yeah, drinking and be merry. And so sometimes have you ever seen people who've gotten into that situation where they think that they have gotten what they've gotten and now they're untouchable? We live in a world where a lot of people feel like they're untouchable. But the richest man in the world could be the brokest man by tomorrow. Yeah, you got that right. We've got so many people now that think that Look at them. They think that they're okay now. Oh, the world gonna be such a better place. Oh, the world is just, they're just, people are so happy. And then when you look at it, people feel like they're at peace and they have what they have, and they feel like they can retire, take it easy, and live their best life. And then while they're out there living their best life, something happens, and then you don't have what you need to take care of what you need to take care of. And people have gotten into the rut of thinking that they're so good, that everything is well, they don't have to do anything else. All they have to do, because they did so good for themselves until now, I don't have anything left to do but sit back and enjoy my life. And people like that sit back and enjoy their lives, those are the type of people who don't really rely on God. Because those are the type of people that think that they did it for themselves. And if you notice, when he was talking about, he's did well, he's gotten all this stuff, not one time in that part of the story did he say, Lord, I thank you for what you've given me. Lord, I thank you that you have allowed me to have what I have.
It's just like this girl I used to work with. She said, she's talking about she got her mom's money, she got her brother's money. They passed away. She got her grandmother's money. She said she was richer than God and never went to church and nothing. I told her, I said, do you know how you got all that money? God can take it away from you as fast as he gave it to you. Yes, she said she was richer than God.
See, and that was a dangerous people. And and I don't know about y'all, but I have been at a place in life where I got plumb mad when I see people that don't even come to church living better than me. Yeah, just be honest. How many have been like that? I've been, Lord, these people living better than me.
I'm doing everything I can, I'm living the Lord. These people over here prospering, and I'm out here,
Yeah. People struggling. We struggling. Yeah. You get upset. You get angry because I said, now, Lord, I'm coming to church. I'm coming to Bible study. I'm doing all that I know to do. And then you got people out here that don't even acknowledge who you are. And they living better than I am. That's enough to make you angry. When you look at, just being honest, it's a right, and don't want to help nobody. Got enough to help somebody, but won't help anybody. And you see people like that, and it's like they have it. And my grandfather always taught me. He said, when you give when you know you're able to give, just in case you don't get it back.
And I know you said it all in this travel, but just stop and think that rich man, if we've been like the rich man, instead of building more, say for instance, like some of the women, I know this woman, she used to can food every summer. And then it would just go to waste because she didn't give it away because it had been there 2 or 3 years in
Right,
the basement.
right.
And they, don't even get there. Just keep canning food and putting it in the basement instead of seeing who
needs it.
use
Right,
it before they
right.
start canning another batch.
And I'm convinced. I think that the reason that Brother Cash has such a good garden every year is because he don't keep it to himself. He don't keep it to himself, because every time he brings something, I said, now that garden ought to be stripped by now. As much stuff as he keeps bringing, and it's like the Lord just keeps multiplying the garden. But that's because he's not keeping it to himself. And we have to be to a place, even as a church, we have got to get to a place to where we have to stop looking at, well, ain't but so many people here today. Lord, I wonder what the offering look like today. Lord, I wonder if we made anything today. Wasn't hardly nobody at church. And Lord, we can't do this and we can't do that. So, and then we get so wrapped up in what we can't do because we're looking at the numbers. And God said, what did he say in his word? He said, try me and prove me. But we don't want to try God in order to, so he can prove himself to us. Yeah, we won't sit down. No, we can't. We can't help them because we didn't get but such and such and such and such. I remember times where I didn't have but a few dollars in my pocket, and then when I gave those few dollars to help somebody else, that's when the Lord multiplied that which I had because I wasn't stingy with it. We got some stingy Negroes in the church. Just flat out stingy. Don't want to help nobody. Don't want to do nothing for nobody. And we have got to get out of the mentality that I can only help folk who are part of my crew.
Yeah, we were somewhere, we saw.
Use the mic, honey. Use the mic. All right. Use the mic.
We were somewhere and
You see how she
And
do me,
so-
Frank? You taking notes, Frank? Tell
Frank, don't
Monique.
listen. Don't
Tell
listen.
Monique.
So we were somewhere and there was a homeless person. Wes had $1, I had $1. And that was literally like the last dollar that we had in our pocket. So I said, let's just give him $2. And so we gave him $2. This was like before we moved here. This lady called Wes to preach and paid him $200 within the day that we gave the homeless person $2. Yes.
Yeah. And you never know how God's going to give it back. But we can't receive God's blessings because we're too stingy to bless somebody else. Right. He'll give it back to you.
That's what I think I heard. God blesses you, but you bless somebody else.
Right.
But you got to believe. I was thinking about it.
Right.
That's the issue. They don't believe.
Because when we get out of the place to say, we can't do this, we can't help nobody. But the problem is we don't want to help anybody, but when help comes to us, we're willing to take it. Look, all that food we had, did we have hardly had any food left when the Red Cross came? They took all that food. The Red Cross came and they helped us. They gave us in the time where we were in a struggle. People were without lights. People were without food. People had, people couldn't get to work, so their money was down and food was back here. And the Lord sent help. And the Lord is sending all of this help to us, but we don't want to be a help to nobody else. Want it all. And we have got to get out of it. And you know what? That is a secular mindset. I can't help you because if I help you, it's going to take from this and it's going to take from that. But I'm learning that if I help somebody, God's going to help me right back. But the key to helping somebody, you got to do it out of a pure heart. You got to do it out of a pure heart. Don't just do it to make yourself a spectacle, because you got some folk that'll give, and when they give, they want to make sure that everybody knows that you're the one that gave. When can we get to the point that we don't have to do that? Yes, ma'am.
Me and Mama did our event on Saturday. They're giving food away down at Redford College. We get up, about 6 o'clock? We get up at our beds at 6 o'clock. We get all that food, bring it back on the truck, and I give it out on my hill, and she gives hers out. But we don't take, some things I take home, but most of the stuff I give it out.
Yeah,
And I found out giving out stuff, I get a give it right back to you.
he will. And if we would just get to the place to where we could just take God at his word and stop worrying about numbers and stop, because God does not work in quantity. God works with quality. Deacon Joe, how many, if I took a seed off of if I took a kernel of corn off of it, one kernel, How many pieces of corn you think I could get? Because that one kernel will grow that stalk, and then it'll grow 3 pieces of corn that's got about 200 kernels on it. Out of just one kernel of corn, it'll grow a whole stalk, and it'll be able to feed you. But we have got to get to the place where we take God at his word. It says, how is this like what is happening today or in your life? We talked about it about, we just talked about that. It says, number 3, note the times that the rich man refers to himself in these verses. How can increased riches and a life of self-indulgence lead to unhappiness, a false sense of self-satisfaction? Example, lottery winners, stories of the rich and famous. So it says, how can increased riches and a life of self-indulgence lead to unhappiness? There are some people that got a lot of money, but are very unhappy. They couldn't want to ask for anything. They can get whatever they want, but they're unhappy. And they're unhappy. And there's some people that you can meet that ain't got a dime in their pocket and happy as they could be. That's because when you trust God for that which you don't have, and that's why it's dangerous for when some people can win the lottery and they forget that they was ever broke. Forget that they ever they forget that they were without stuff.
There was a story, in North Carolina, I think out east somewhere. Won the lottery. Had all this money. Actually came with $2 million.
Right.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, kept bailing him out of jail. Yeah.
I guess too, we see it every day on the news. Bill Gates, richest man in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Bill Gates, the richest man in the world.
And and the Lord knows some of us. You've heard people say, Lord, you done bought a lottery ticket. You say, Lord, if you let me win, Lord, I'm going to give 10% to the church. Lord, if you let me win, I'm going to do this for this one. I'm going to do that for that one. And the Lord said, now you know you lying. That's what the Lord saying to us. Now you know you lying. No, it ain't going to be a sin because we'll take it now. Lord knows we'll take it. You hit it, we'll take it. But what happens is some of us the Lord won't bless some of us, not all of us, but some people can't get blessed with more because the Lord said, you won't share with what you got now. Then you're making all these false promises. Lord, if you do this, then I'll do that. Lord, if you make a way over here, then I'll do this. We've done that with promises with the Lord. Lord, if you get me out of this, Lord, I promise I'll go to church. Then you go to church for 2 or 3 Sundays, and after that, you back to doing what you was doing that got you into trouble in the first place. We make a lot of empty promises to God. If you do this, Lord, I promise I'll do this. And Lord, I promise I'll do that. And I'll do this. And that's why the Lord, he won't bless some of us because he knows that we lying. He knows we are. Lord, you bless me with a new car. Lord, I promise I'll do this. And you can't even give nobody a ride in the car that you got now. Well, we just gotta we gotta be real with ourselves, because the only way that we can get what we need to get from God is by being honest with ourselves. A lot of us are not honest with us. You'll lie to yourself more than you'll lie to anybody else. And we feel that it's a good thing. It says secular values results in dead ends, verses 20 and 21. It says, just then God showed up and said, fool, tonight you die, and your barn full of goods, who gets it? That's what happens when you fill your barn with self and not with God. It says, what is Jesus saying about material possessions when all is said and done? After it's all said and done, folks hoarding all this stuff, knowing you're going to die. And after you die, somebody else going to spend your hard-earned money. Somebody else going to spend it. And my mama told us, she said, she got sick and me and my brother, we were talking to her about different stuff. And when she was first diagnosed with cancer, and my mother, when she loved to travel, she would go anywhere. And she's been on different types of trips. And I told her one day, I said, Mama, you spending all this money going on these trips? I was making a joke with her. I said, you spend all this money. I said, I ain't going to have nothing left when you die. I said, what you going to leave me? And she said, nothing. She said, I worked. And she said, I made this money. And she said, I'm going to spend it on me. Now, she told me, now I got a little insurance policy. And after she said, now because she had already paid for her funeral and all that stuff. So she had insurance. She said, I got this little insurance policy. She said, now you and your brother do what you want to with that. But she said, what I got now, you ain't getting none of it. Because she said, I'm spending it while I'm here. And that's exactly what she did. She spent it while she was here. And some of us, we lay up this stuff and we get it all. And you gonna die. And then the very person you didn't want to spend your money is the one that's gonna spend it. The very person that you didn't want to have your money is the one that's gonna have it. So we got all this stuff and we hoarding it for nothing. And he said, that's what happens when you fill your barn with self and not God. Because the Lord come back and told him, he said, you fool, you gonna die. And all this stuff that you got, what's it gonna amount to? Nothing. Can't take it with you. You can't take it with you. Ain't never seen it. There was this woman, husband was rich. I mean, mega rich. And so he always told her, he said, baby, I don't want nobody spending my money. And she said, he said, I want my money to go with me. Even wanted to buy extra grave space so he could bury his money because he didn't want nobody to have his money. And so his wife said, talking to him, and he made this plea before he was getting ready to die. And his wife promised, he said, baby, you got to promise me that you're going to put my money with me. He said, I don't want nobody having it. He's going to let her keep a little bit for herself. But he said, put that money with me because I don't want nobody to have it. So the man died and the woman was crying. And she said, oh, Lord, he want me to bury this money. Lord, what am I going to do? And so she got smart. She went to the funeral and they got to the cemetery. And as they got to the cemetery, she told the funeral director, she said, open the casket back up just one more time. Open the casket back up, and she slid something in there. The funeral director said, what did you do? She said, he wanted all his money, so I wrote him a check. Wrote him a check. Yeah, for every dime that he had, wrote him a check. And so now she can't say that she didn't bury all his money with him. He just can't cash the check. And we have to be to a place to where we understand that we've got what we have, but we don't have it to be selfish and to be greedy. It says, what is the message, the timeless truth for all mankind from today's lesson? From all mankind, let's look at Luke 12:33. It says, be generous, give to the poor, get yourselves a bank that can't go bankrupt, a bank in heaven, far from bank robbers, safe from embezzlers, a bank you can bank on. And then we're going to read 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter, verses 9 and 10. So these are the timeless truths that we have. It says, but neither exile nor homecoming is the main thing. Cheerfully pleasing God is the main thing, and that's what we aim to do regardless of our conditions. Sooner or later, we'll all have to face God, regardless of our conditions. We will appear before Christ and take what's coming to us as a result of our actions, either good or bad. So with this message for all mankind today, he's simply telling us, don't get wrapped up in the secular activities of this world. Don't get wrapped up in the greediness and in the wanting to always get something and not being able to give something, because the Lord will bless us when we give. There's a blessing in giving. It's a blessing to be a blessing to someone. And so we thank God for that, to learning about the secular life and the phases of our spiritual journey. Praise God. That was a good lesson. And there's more to this phases of the spiritual journey, but I didn't get it all printed out tonight, but we'll have it for you on Sunday. And you'll be able to get the other 3 lessons that go with this on Sunday for our next few Bible studies that we're going to have. Just a few announcements. Sunday, they are not feeding us. They're doing a repast after the service. So we're going to, and they said the service started at 3 and not 2:30, right? Is that, read that message again. From when Sean had texted. Okay, we're going to be there by 2:30. We're gonna be there by 2:30. So it's only like a 40-minute drive from here. Well, 40-minute drive from here to that church in Statesville. So we're gonna be there by 2:30. So if you need to go grab a sandwich after church. And somebody just find you a sandwich, and then we're gonna Deacon Joel, you gonna drive the van? You not driving? Okay. Oh, you're going, okay. Yeah, that's an experience just to go. Well, we'll find somebody. We'll get the van to get down there somehow. Frank, you going?